President.
Senator from Tennessee.
I am confirming we are not in a quorum call, correct?
You are correct.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. For more than 200 years, the American people have exercised their right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We understand how very vitally important it is for each of us to have that right, to petition our government, to have our say. But just as we learned from our moms and dads when we were kids, there is a right way and there is a wrong way to get things done when we feel that, in our opinion, the government has fallen short. Mr. President, I would understand if this differentiation between right and wrong sometimes causes confusion, because although the American people are united in their desire for justice and equality, that sense of unity, they feel, is under attack. Over the past few weeks, we've watched thousands of protesters peacefully march in the memory of George Floyd, and countless other Black Americans that have been killed, have lost their lives at the hands of law enforcement. Now, sometimes these protests are vigils and they're very quiet. There are other times they fill the streets and they are a bit disruptive, and they demand accountability from their government in a way that has really captured the attention of the entire world. On the other side, however, we have watched professional agitators who have come in to some of these protests, and then they have turned this into riots. And the self-prescribed culture warriors silence anyone and anything that deviates from their own chosen narrative. And that is very unfortunate. The paths we take to achieve our desired outcomes are informed by the goals that we have, not the other way around. This is why we must question the goals of those whose activism has taken a repressive turn, because peaceful protest is an essential element of addressing government. That is how you achieve change. That is how you get people with you and working with you. And it's a part of who we are, this absolute protection against suppression in any form. This makes the recent dismantling of meaningful public discourse all the more disturbing. Because as you look back through our nation's history, you realize freedom and freedom's cause has been well served by robust, respectful, bipartisan debate. Robust, respectful, bipartisan debate. Hearing all voices. Now, Mr. President, you remember how sometimes we would joke about the cancel culture because it was the product of social media influencers and overenthusiastic fan clubs. But what we see now is that has taken hold of the entertainment industry, corporations, and editorial boards. Outrage manufactured along partisan lines dominates every news cycle, all in an intentional and targeted effort to divide the American people. And thereby, what would that do? It destroys our cultural identity. If this isn't what chilling speech looks like, then I don't know what does. I'd like to be able to say that this body stands united against this wave of malice, or that I'm confident we've demonstrated a commitment to real reform, but I fear that we have not yet arrived at that place. in spite of everything, in spite of it being clear that those who seek to divide and destroy this country are working just as hard as those who seek to unite it, other priorities remain in play. And this has become especially evident today. Last week, my friend and colleague, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, announced that he was leading a working group with the goal of drafting a comprehensive police reform bill. You all know what happened next. He spoke about it just a few hours ago, but I think it's important to get on the record just one more time today. He deserves our thanks, and he deserves credit. Before Senator Scott had a chance to write a single word of his bill, some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle were ready to shut it down. It was stunning. Let me read you a few of these statements. And I am quoting. Someone said, "I suspect it's all going to be window dressing." Another, "It's so far from being relevant to the crisis at hand." Another, "This is not a time for lowest common denominator, watered down reforms." And then another unfortunate comment for which an apology was offered later today, and that apology was accepted. All of this is disappointing. Hurtful, yes. Disappointing, because this is a time when we have to carry on. We have to move forward. Senator Scott announced the introduction of the Justice Act. I'm honored to be a co-sponsor of that legislation, and I think it is imperative that we move forward with our discussions and our deliberations just as we would with any other bill. This chamber is going to find a way to move forward with suggestions, but above all, I urge my colleagues to consider some of the words that have been said. I urge them to take those words to heart, and I urge them to remember what we are fighting for. What we are fighting for. And to stop focusing so hard on who you've convinced yourself that you should be fighting against. I yield the floor.